Hello and good evening. You're very welcome to this Wednesday evening edition of the PM Express. My name is Kojo Yankson. You can join us live on Facebook. We are at JoyNews on TV. You can also interact with us on Twitter and Instagram. Handle remains the same. For more news and information, we're also on myjoyonline.com. Now let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, there lived three party communicators. On weekday afternoons, they would come together on Montie FM and speak to the entire nation about what they felt was going right and what was going wrong. They took no prisoners. They spared nobody when they felt that there was a need for criticism. One afternoon, they went too far. They took their tough talk to the Supreme Court. But that is where they were stopped. A case of contempt was brought against them. They pleaded guilty and begged for leniency. Best they got was a 10,000 cedi fine each and 3 months in jail. The president at the time, after petitions from all walks of life had come to his desk, consulted his Council of State and decided that he would pardon them. Let's start to go through a little bit of how we ended up where we are today. It all started with the conversation, that one conversation in the studio that led to the Chief Justice and other Supreme Court justices calling them up on contempt. They were, of course, found guilty in spite of their pleading. A 3-month jail sentence was handed to them. But following that, the president, of course, pardoned them. Now, this was about 3 weeks into their sentence. Now, it wasn't exactly a pardon, it was a remission of their sentence. So the sentence actually was remitted, made shorter. So the conviction was not overturned, their sentence was simply made shorter. Now, following that, 3 people felt that this pardon was not constitutional, was not lawful. The president, they felt, had no right to pardon people who had been sentenced for criminal contempt. So the Supreme Court took the matter up and ruled just today that the remission of sentence was upheld. So the Supreme Court passed down a sentence. That sentence was remitted by the president, and the Supreme Court came back to say that remission was legal, was lawful. And so the Montie 3, as they were known back then, are free. They don't need to go back and finish their sentence. But of course, these arguments have led us to where we are today. What are the effects? What is the effect of this legal saga? The up and down, the on and off, the in and out. What is the effect? How have the Montie 3 come through this? Have they changed? Are they different people? Are they better people? Will they do things differently in the future? What are they up to today? How has this particular event changed the landscape of the media in Ghana forever? Were they treated unfairly? I'm sure you'd like to know how they feel and what their answers would be to all of these questions. So today, we go one-on-one with one of the Montie 3. You'll hear everything he has to say about it right after these messages. You're very welcome back. Tonight, our guest is one of the Montie 3, Mr. Alistair Nelson. Thank you so much for your time with us. It's good to see you.
Yeah, good job. Thanks for the opportunity to be here.
Now, before we get into it with Mr. Nelson, I want to bring you this sort of summary of how we got here. Check this out.
I'm a bit.
That was the conversation that started the harsh attack on the justices of Ghana's Superior Court.
Is it the Supreme Court? Is it the Supreme Court who determines the pension? Christian Council?
The exact words cannot be repeated here, but Alistair Nelson, Godwin Akogan, and radio show host Salif Umase faced contempt charges after threatening the then Chief Justice Georgina Theodora Wood and other justices of Ghana's highest court, the Supreme Court. The three were found guilty of the contempt charges. Nana Atudadze represented them in court.
The hosts and the panelists were sentenced to 4 months imprisonment, in addition to 10,000 Ghana cedis fine or a further 1 month imprisonment. Thank you very much.
The contemnors were driven to the Insawam prison to begin their sentences. Public opinion around this was split.
The final judgment, what I can say is, this will be a lesson for us. The advice I'll give to the journalists that they should, because it happened to one of the stations, it can happen to another.
Oman can yen, the Oman yen, but send the Nipa, the Nipa to me from an of from Soma Pacho, and Doma Pacho, the next say, Adam.
And then thus emerged. The advocacy from within the rank and file of the NDC, free the Montie 3, was their message. The campaigners demanded that then-President John Dramani Mahama pardoned the three.
Break our conscience as a country and fight against such injustice. We cannot continue to live like that. The principles of justice state that all must be equal before the law. Where is the equality here?
It was a big dilemma for a president preparing to seek re-election. But he listened to the voice of his party, despite the strong opposition from other quarters. Mr. Mahama explained why.
Even before they were called before the court, they had shown remorse. They had apologized for what they said. Before the court, they apologized again. When they were sentenced in mitigation, they asked for mercy and apologized, retracted everything they said. And even after they were sentenced and left the court and went to prison, they still, in written and verbal form, expressed absolute regret for what they did.
But this was a justification that would be tested in court.
It was tested in court, and just today the ruling came through that the remission that was ordered by the former President John Dramani Mahama has been upheld. And so the Montie 3 have no fear of having to go back to prison for this particular offense. So, Mr. Nelson, naturally the news must have been good news for you.
Yes, sure, it came out good news, but I'm here on my own authority, not on authority of the three. I've decided to come here to speak about this matter, to thank all those who helped us to get through it. And even with this matter returning to court, I mean, it was not easy. Calls here and there, the pressure on you. You have your sons coming up asking you, Daddy, what is happening again, and other things. And I think that it was a great relief today, especially when the court announced that by verdict of 5-2, the presidential pardon that was given to us by John Dramani Mahama was upheld. So it means that we are free forever. You see, the pardon that came to us was done in law. It was done in law.
The remission.
The remission that came. It was done in law. It was not rushed. Despite the fact that the system was under pressure, the sitting president at the time was facing re-election. He was under pressure from the party people. I mean, people who didn't understand why were jailed were putting pressure at the executive authority. So they had to do something. But you see, the president had to act not when the matter was in court. The matter had left the ambit of the Supreme Court, and we had been sentenced based on the contempt of court. And if you read history or you read the law, you see that the contempt of court was introduced by the British gentry in order to protect their judges whilst doing their work or going about their work. And with the contempt of court too, there was no statutory remission. Once the sentence came out, you were to go to prison for the number of days or the number of months that you have been sentenced in full. Right. The state was not going to take any part of it once it came under the contempt law. You understand? So I'm sure once the sentence came, it left the ambit of the court. And now the state was looking up to the president, who had the final authority. Yes, the law was there to protect the judges, but was the punishment too harsh? And who could save the situation? So you go to the advanced countries who even use the contempt law. Some of them today have scrapped it because they saw it as an instrument where judges could use it to bully society and to cow society into submission.
Do you think that happened in your case? Do you think judges used this to bully you?
What I want to say is that the sentence, rather, going to prison for 31 days, what did I do wrong? The pain, the lessons learned is what has changed me. So I will not lay blame at anybody's doorstep. I've been an advocate of the Supreme Court way back. I support judges in their decisions all the time. But, you know, in this case, whatever happened, it happened. And we had to apologize. Like you said, maybe we went too far with what we said. And what pained me in the case and why I decided to come and speak it out was that I spoke in Twi. And whatever I said in Twi today has been transcribed into English. There was no offense. But there again, they set the tone. So I went back and apologized. I will apologize any day to the sensibilities of those we hurt. And we have all gone through this thing. Here are the lessons. I came face to face with the prisons and the penal system of the state. I was scared by how we decide as a state to cram people in prison without effective reformation, without effective rehabilitation. And these things now on a daily basis, as I sit and think, I always reminisce how I could find a solution to helping people who come into contact or infraction with the law who are kept behind bars. Prison is not a good place at all. It is not a good place. For any young man watching me, avoid coming into contact with the law, avoid coming into the infractions of the law, and every time seek good counsel in whatever you do so that you stay away from our penal, our prison systems, because it destroys. It destroys. I mean, if you look at the people we met in prison, you go from the condemned cells, you see people who are in incarceration for taking other people's lives who are there. Some of the things, when you hear them, it's so, you can't understand. There's somebody who is only going to separate a fight, and in the process, holds one of them who is fighting. A blow comes through, the person falls and dies later in hospital. You who are trying to stop the fight, today find yourself in prison. So many things have sent people there. People have followed their friends into trouble. And that scared me. How people would put behind bars 30 years, 25 years. I met somebody. He has asked me to mention his name as secretary. He's still in Nsawam. He has been there since 1979. What did he do wrong? Has he not changed? Is he not a reformed person that society would take back? So by this incident, taking us to prison, first 26 days in Nsawam, and then 5 days in Akuse. So by the double experience we got, you see Nsawam is an international university, and Akuse is a local university. My God, the difference. The local prison Akuse, they go into rice growing and grass cutter because of where they find themselves. And the prison that houses Akuse's prison today was a warehouse for the colonial people. They were keeping grains there. So you can imagine, there's no aeration, very poor aeration. It is even when we got there that the OIC, I'll mention his name, Fifi Akwa, very instrumental guy, a big psychologist by all standards, how he spoke to me. I was agitated coming from Nsawam. But when I got to Akuse, by my interaction with him, I came down because the days were near. A pardon, our remission had been announced on radio, and there was no need to keep my agitation up. So by his interaction, I came down. He tried to do certain things to make us comfortable. Quickly got a fan to the place and got us some good mattress to sleep on. But you see, the subconscious mind was working. quickly, are you better than these people you have met? Why are you being given this treatment? You understand? Then those things made me to recoil and then to respect nature. That look at these people have been there. Some of them, when you listen to the sentences, they have been fined just 300 Ghana. They cannot pay. So they are inside 10 years. So that experience alone going to prison has now made me to...
What did you do about all the privileges that you were being accorded? When you felt so guilty about them, did you return them?
Yes, how I shared my time with those inside, and not only me, we were nowhere to, and whatever we had, we shared it with them, because we thought that it was an opportunity to even interact with them, to know their problems, and then to, as we go out, try to help them. You know, there's a school in Sawam, built by the former president. So there's a junior secondary school and senior secondary school. And the school is helping a lot of people, but it could be more effective if we could direct somebody from outside, you know, somebody who can help to support feeding those who go to school to get some, because the food is shared whilst they're in the classroom. And by the time they return, they cannot get food to eat. And that one takes a lot of people out of the classroom. So that whilst they are in incarceration, they can get an education, and can become better citizens.
We'll talk a lot more about your time behind bars and all the lessons as you've started to enumerate them. But I want us to go all the way back to the beginning. Walk through the experience from your perspective. Now, of course, I'm sure you have no appetite to repeat the things you said, and so we will not be repeating any of what was said in that conversation. But I'm interested in your state of mind, you know, at the point that conversation occurred. Now, you had, the three of you, and in fact others, had been on this show on different days, on several occasions, over a long period of time. You built a reputation as a group of people who would say whatever you felt. So on the day you had this conversation, did you feel like you were saying something that was crossing the line? Did you feel it? Did you have a sense of occasion that today what we are saying is the worst we've said?
I laughed it off because on those both days, 24th June and 29th June, I was not invited to the station. Because of one or two personal problems, I went there to put power in my phone. Then the host came, and then he went upstairs, did his things, and then the program started. I was in the visitors' room. So it was after their first round that they had spoken. Then I was listening, I said, you people didn't address the issue. You need to go and address the issue and place it where the doorstep of where the matter must lie. So I came in. I forced my way to join the panelists. I was not on, I can mention those who were billed, you can check from the station. I was not called into the show. Then on 29th too, because the judgment was going to come, I was there, and then the judgment was passed. And you see, you said we built a reputation. What you saw us doing on that station was not pre-planned. It was not premeditated. Any day, any time. I was never called by the host to go and do any special thing and come with fire. No. I felt by intuition that I had to save my country. I was with the Progressive People's Party at the time. I saw what was going on, and there was somebody who had to do something to draw the attention of all. And that is why I gave the historical antecedents, not to hurt anybody. That was not the intention. The only thing you get to say is the use of the tone, the force in the tone was not very good.
But let's be fair. I mean, the three of you in this conversation threatened to go to judges' homes. You threatened to rape a judge. You threatened to kill judges. It's not just the tone, is it?
No. Where is the threat of the rape? I spoke in Twi. I said, Awarie, Madamfu, a friend in Nash or Mataiko. I don't want to repeat.
I'd rather you didn't.
Yes.
But
I spoke in Twi. I said, Awarie, Obe Wareo. So the meaning of the word Awarie, now when it comes to English, is it rape?
But when you went to the Supreme Court and they laid these charges out before you that you had threatened to rape and threatened to kill judges.
When the matter has got into Kojo,
you apologized.
Yes,
you didn't seek to defend yourself.
It was a collective problem that had come. And what was the collective decision? The collective decision was not to go and defend anything, but was to go and apologize.
So you believed you were innocent, but you decided to act as if you were
Kojo,
you were remorseful.
Who am I to say I'm innocent here?
No, I'm asking what you believe.
Yes, that's what I'm saying, that if you take what I said in context and the use of words and you transcribe it into English, I mean, it was the tone that got us the punishment, like I said. I believe so. Because today you can have the transcription of whatever conversation went on that day. It's clear, it's there. You understand? You see, I don't want us to go back and...
Yes, I'd rather we didn't.
Yeah, it's a remorseful thing. It's not easy to go to Britain.
It's the frame of mind I'm interested in.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There was no premeditated intention. There was no evil plan. There was nothing, but it was just... I came through the thing because I was around. I knew where the issues were. And the people who had done the discussion, starting the discussion, didn't put in the verve, you understand, that we wanted.
So I went in to drop a few bombs.
Yes, yes. And what did you say about it, Kojo? It was a very, a draggy issue about an electoral commissioner who had just been appointed, a bloated register that the opposition had talked about. Election was getting close. We needed a resolution. As a young man, knowing the history of West Africa, take Liberia. When the elderly people decided to engage in whatever political fisticuffs, the young people took sides. And then when the calabash dropped, it collapsed. They took arms against each other and destroyed Liberia. Then in Sierra Leone too, the same thing. When for the Sanko and Co. took up arms, it was the young people they brought up to fight and destroy their country. You go to Rwanda, the same instance. Come to Burundi, Central African Republic. So then, we as young people in Ghana, knowing the history and knowing the problems of states that have been destroyed, will not go down the path where the elderly people wanted to go. There was a problem with the register. We needed to resolve it. We need a resolution. We don't need to go to war over a bloated register. We didn't need to fight over an election where somebody had won and even a sitting president had lost. We didn't need to fight.
And your solution was to threaten judges?
No. It was to add my voice to the debate. I slipped. And that was the end. Going to prison and serving. It was 4 months they gave us. 10,000 Ghana each. Some had to pay 30,000. The elderly people we brought into trouble. Those who were sitting in their homes who had not sent us to speak. The owners of the station. Today my relationship is broken with all of them. It's very difficult to even pick a phone and call any of them. They wouldn't respond. Because you attacked us. The bad boy in the system. That's been a very bad experience for me.
But why are they upset with you? I mean, they have never complained in the past
don't worry.
over the things that you've said. And in fact, on the day you said these things, did any of them call you to say, you've gone too far? Or did any of them call and chastise any of you?
Yes, there was rumor going around. First, I saw the tape on WhatsApp. Somebody forwarded it to me. Somebody came to my home to show me on Facebook and all that. I said, there's nothing threatening about what I said. Then I started getting calls from lawyers and party people. Then a close friend of mine who was a minister of state at the time told me, now, listen, this one you cannot get away if you don't apologize. That evening, I didn't know the BNI was looking for me. So somebody tried to pick me up to send me to the BNI on a Saturday evening. So it was on interaction with others that I got to know that, this thing that's taking a different turn. I'm not afraid to run away from the security agencies. I prefer to hand over myself to go through whatever interrogation because I didn't mean any harm. Then what happened? A journalist friend of mine told me to go home and that if I got to the BNI, I'll be locked up and I'll spend the night there. So then on Sunday morning of that day, of the weekend, I decided that no, after breakfast, I'll go to the BNI myself. By the time I got there, one of my colleagues was already there, Akogan. We were interrogated for about 6 hours. The panel I faced and the allegation they threw at me, I had to come out to defend myself there. First, they said we wanted to bring in a massacre like the one that occurred in Zimbabwe. I think the name is the Gitingura massacres. Today the current president is accused as the person who spearheaded it, Emerson Mnangagwa. And Mnangagwa. They tried to liken whatever I said to those things that happen in Zimbabwe and read a little about it. So I went on that tangent. That how would I even think of going to massacre anybody, let alone kill somebody who was sitting in authority? My argument there was that once there is civil war in this country, the authority of the state will collapse. Who would then be called the Chief Justice? Who would then be called the Vice President? Who would then be called? Authority of the state has broken down. So lawless people, people who thought they had the energy, will ramp onto the state and do anything. That is why I said what I said. But not to chase anybody, to harm anybody's authority or anything, if the state was intact. If the state was not intact, who was I to control anybody? So that is why I came in and put in my voice that we will not get there. Because when we get there, when the law collapses on all of us, you will not be upheld. What any authority you hold is collapsed.
Let's fast forward to the court case. Your lawyer is the one who argued that you suffered from Bokbok.
Yes, I, as a person, in responding to what I heard, the tapes that were played, and other things, and then, you know, previously when the court petition went to the court petition about the elections in 2012 had gone to the Supreme Court. The wise one, Ayikweotu, had come in and said that these people were suffering from Beshi. You understand?
Yes.
I'm a guy. So once he used the word Beshi and going to court knowing the problem that had come, I also looked for what I could liken, because once he used the Beshi to defend these people and get them out of court, to suffer just some penal fines and other things. I wanted to take the mind of the state through that same exercise. And when somebody says Beshi, you have other things that come with Beshi. There's Otale, it's another form of it. And then there's Pokpoblible, it's another form of it. So I decided to plead with the court and those gathered therein to help me to plead with the Supreme Court judges. And that it was a moment of Pokpoblible. You know, it is that moment that you think that you are right. And that once you are right, there's nothing that should cross you. But we slipped. It was a big slip. That is why we came back.
Is that a condition, right? It's an illness, isn't it?
No, it's different from Bili. That one is different. That is an ailment.
So Pokpoblible is what?
You see, you are energized by what you hear which is not good to you. And you want to fight back. It's an intense moment. When you get out what is in you, you are free, you are relieved. It is not about any ailment or anything. It's like when you are caught up in Beshi. Beshi is like somebody who is strong and has engaged in a fight. Once the fight is not ended, I mean, you cannot draw him out of it. And that is the kind of, you know, passion that came in me. That will not sit down for this country to go to civil war. Will not allow utterances that will split this country apart.
You forgive me, I'm not Ghana, so I'm relying on your explanation.
Yes, that's
here.
what I'm giving.
But until this conversation, everybody I've asked about Pokpoblible has explained it as a mental state, you know, but temporary insanity of some sort, where you are not responsible for your words.
No, if I were not responsible, I won't come back and apologize. Those were my words. And hence the apology and the plea. Yes.
But your mitigation was that you were in a fit of...
Yes, of course. That's why even when we pleaded, they still went on to punish us. If you offend somebody and you say, "Oh, I'm sorry," you have admitted that you have offended a person. And the temerity of a person will decide whether, "Oh, okay, you have offended me, you pinched me, I'll pinch you back, or I've forgiven you." So in this one, once we agreed that we are sorry, what did we have to say? You see, after the BNI interrogation...
So you know what you did, you were sorry.
Yes.
Where does Pokpoblible come in?
Like I said, it's that moment of incessation. You need to fight back. If you don't fight, nobody's going to fight. You need to fight, no matter the casualty you're going to go through. So it's a deliberate,
conscious decision.
Yes, it's a conscious decision.
To have Pokpoblible.
To fight back. Yes, in that, somebody will say, because you have to do it. If you don't do it, the thing will get worse. So you close your eye, barring all whatever it is, and say it as it is. Barring the consequences, and barring who you are speaking to. Because you have to do it. If you don't do it, and your voice is not heard, one day posterity will judge you. Why didn't you take part in this? Why were you not vociferous in championing a peaceful society when these matters came out? And
did you often initiate this feeling of in your interactions on the show before or after that day?
It comes. I've told you, in defense of my nation, I will do anything to get the nation intact. Look, since I was 4 years, I've had dreams upon dreams about who will be president. I didn't know Liman anyway. I was barely 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. I went to Achimota Primary. But I knew way back that Liman would be president. Yes. I met Achampon. I was small. My father was close to him. Even former President Rawlings. I have that intuition. I have 7 brothers, 4 of which are pastors and are dealing with the church on a daily basis. So you cannot take that spirituality in me away. And I did it for a good purpose. Whatever punishment came to me, whatever disgrace came to me, like I said, we have moved on. It's 2 years now. We thank all those who have helped us to get this far. It has helped to shape our thoughts and our utterances in public. Okay. What to say and what not to say, and where to go and where not to go. Right. Like I said, the lessons from the beginning, the BNI, after we left the BNI, the advice that came, what we should do and what we didn't do. Because when we left the BNI, they warned us not to speak on radio. But one of us, who was not interrogated by the BNI, went back on radio to speak. Which
one of you?
He was not interrogated by the BNI, Bogabi Masi. So he went back to speak. And even when that tape was played in court, to his hearing, it was unpleasant. So then the director of research who helped us, who spoke to us, we had to report to him on a daily basis whilst we were going to court. You understand? And they spoke to us. Once they spoke to us, and they directed whatever we were doing on radio back into our quarters to think through it. And that we didn't need to be antagonistic in our approach to resolving or speaking our minds on radio. We could go to the issue, speak it hard, and digress the matter any day. And we should stay away from attacking the persons that were involved with the matter. Good advice. It has fallen on good ground. Then, if you also look at the aftermath, going to prison, coming back, the neighborhood, friends.
I want us to talk particularly about that, how it was when you came out of prison, when we returned from these all-important messages. But we're going one-on-one with one of the Montie 3, Mr. Alistair Nelson, walking us through his state of mind throughout the saga that has led to today's upholding of the presidential remission of their sentence. It's fascinating stuff. We're learning more. I need to say, just before we take this break, that we did invite all 3 of the Montie 3. Mr. Mugabe Mase declined to join us, but Mr. Akogan, who was recently voted as a Deputy Communications Officer for the NDC, was expressing interest, asking a few questions, but eventually we lost communication with him. But we're continuing our discussion with Mr. Alistair Nelson right after these. This is PM Express, and tonight we're going one-on-one with one of the Montie 3. We're here in the studio with Alistair Nelson. He's walked us through his state of mind throughout the events that have led to today's upholding of the president's remission of their sentence. They were sentenced to 3 months, 4 months, forgive me, in prison, but it was remitted and they spent just about a month, after which they came home. We have breaking news. Member of Parliament for Ayawaso West Wuogon, Mr. Emmanuel Chermantin Ejakun, has passed away. We have confirmed that following a bout of illness, the Member of Parliament died in the United States of America. Our thoughts are with his family at this time. We continue to gather information about the circumstances surrounding his death. But for now, what we can confirm, sadly, is that Mr. Emmanuel Chermantin Ejakun, Honorable Member of Parliament for Ayawaso West Wuogon constituency here in the Greater Accra region, has died. May his soul rest in perfect peace. Mr. Nelson, did you know the Member of Parliament?
Yes. It's a sad person.
It is indeed.
A very sad person. May the good Lord receive him and his soul wherever. He's very hard-working man, always running around, getting his party, once you work for your party and you come into government, it is the nation you have been working for. He served as Member of Parliament, and I think that God knows best. It's the good Lord who knows best. And we commiserate with his family at this time.
No doubt. There won't be a dry eye in Ayawaso West Wagon, or in Parliament for that matter. He was indeed a popular Member of Parliament and a regular panelist here on the AM show on the JoyNews channel. We interacted with him on many, many occasions, and he was a member of our family. He will be sorely missed. Now we continue our conversation. Of course, as we learn more about the departed, we will share with our audience. But we were in the middle of your narrative, and quite a narrative it is. Now, you've told us so much about the experience in prison, but just before you were sentenced, I mean, you had put your hands up. You had pleaded, to the charge, and were seeking mercy from the court. Tell me, I mean, what was the worst case scenario that your lawyers were expecting? Did they say, oh, you'll pay a fine and go home?
Why I laugh it off was that from day one, when we got to the court, and we had not received our summons, but I've had the opportunity to work with a lawyer before. So quickly, I approached my lawyer and asked him where our summons was. And he said he has also not received it. So quickly, we had to leave the court to the registry. Because once the judges came in and we didn't even have our summons, they would ask us what brought us. And if we were to answer in the positive that we heard that they wanted us and we came, it's the same thing that we had been served. But we needed to see what was on the service. So we went to the registry and we saw the bailiff. He was not polite to us at all. He threw it at us and other things. We picked him before we rushed to the court. And then we used what had been given to us to plead for time, to go back and then respond to the registry as to the charges that had been brought against us. So it was all begging. He said, we come before you in sackcloths and other things, with our knees down and then pleading till you hear our plea. I mean, we wanted to let them feel the remorse we were feeling. Not a remorse on paper, not a remorse spoken in public, but a remorse that we felt. We wanted them to feel it.
How were you reading their body language?
Yes, when we went to the court and we saw the panel, at least the lead panel is the person who chaired the occasion. Very interesting how she went about, and she gave everybody opportunity and other things. But the look on their faces scared us. For instance, me, I was scared by one of them today who dissented. Because of the looks and other things. I saw that Charlie were in serious trouble and there was nothing we could do. So we're given time after the first day to go back and then come again. We came, we tried to plead and other things, and then they set a final date. So our expectation, the final date was that at least some fine, about 10,000 to 20,000 fine, and then maybe an undertaking, a bond, maybe banning us from radio or something for some time and other things. But anticipation was not to be. As we had our lawyers had spoken and begged and pleaded and done all they could do, especially the skillful one, Nanatu Dazi. He did all he could. Lawyer Fredado, you have the young man, George Lowe, you have Edoji Tamaklo, and then Mugabe's lawyer who came from the Bonga. They did all they could. There was conferencing. But you see that on that final day, the die was cast. Especially when the people who own the station and the media had been brought into the problem and questioned in the full glare of the public. I was cowed into submission that, hey, if our big men have been dealt this blow, there was no way we were going to go out of it. The first day we came to court, we heard somebody whisper to a journalist who was sitting by that this one is a done deal. They'll go in for 4 months. In fact, that's what scared us to run to the registry to go and take our summons and other things. And then we began to think through on that final day that, Charlie, Our elders have been fined 30,000. There's no way we're going to go home. We're sitting together. I remember telling Akogan that, Charlie, the die is cast. We should be looking to the prisons. And we laughed over it. Then the sentence came. The 3 contemnors have been handed over 4 months each. We had 10,000 fine. There was no mercy at all. Tears rolling over, people all over. There was nothing I could do. First, I couldn't understand why I should even be handcuffed into the car. What did I do? Just speaking on radio. Has he got into this? But then the CID boss today, so at the time she was in charge of a police security arrangement at the court, she came close to me and then she spoke to me at length. I gave in and decided to follow her in the handcuffs to the car because it was a quasi-criminal case and there was no way they could lead me to the car without the handcuffs. There were a lot of people who were waiting for me. The 2 had joined the car. There was no option. I'm sure that's the van that you are seeing in there. It was a bad experience, especially our journey from the court to Nsawam. As if we were riding on a Moto 1 race where we were going to be paid for the speed at which the car was going. My God! Top speed on bad road, back road through, and all of a sudden, all we realized we're at the Adenta police station. Who do we look up to? Raise your head, you don't see anybody. Then Ramadan, Abu Ramadan, the man whose case went to court and we slept on it. Yeah. His brother was the MP for Adenta. Just in seconds, he rushed to a police station, and then that gave us some relief. But they made us to change over, and then we were put in a cell. Just about 10 minutes, they got an order that we were sending us to Nsawam. First, we thought we were going all the way to Ankafu.
Explain to me, you said something in a way, you said, who do we look up to?
Yes.
Tell me about that feeling. It must have been quite a deep feeling of isolation.
Yes.
But why is it that you were thinking that? You've been sentenced. You're going to jail. You were expecting some authorities to be there to help you through that?
Yes, somebody to come and tell you that, yes, we've done all we could. The lawyers have defended you. But psychologically, somebody to dress us down before to encounter what we're going to encounter. For me, 2 years down the line...
Is that what you think happens when people are sentenced?
Yes. Normally, when you're sentenced, close people must come and quickly get you to ease down. Because you're going to start a new life where you have not been before, in a confined area. You understand? So you need matured minds. People who have the psychology of minds to approach you. It's not easy. Not at all. What are you going to see there? Are you better than the people you are going to meet there? How are you going to carry yourself? Where are you going to be put? What's the expectation of the people who are going to incarcerate you and keep you in there? So those things kept on running through our minds. You understand? So
and you were expecting some government officials to be there to meet you?
Yes, at least party persons or even some good well-wishers. So when Ramadan came in, he spoke to me just for 2 minutes. Alistair, calm down. This has happened to many people. You will not be the first and you will not be the last. Take it in good faith. But as you go inside, you learn your lessons on a daily basis. So I shook hands with him and then went into the cell at Adenta. Just some moments later, they took us. That one too, at top speed, to Nsawam. When we got there, we were reduced to nothing. Can you imagine, Charlie? Reduced to nothing. Is that where our speaking engagements had brought us to? Was that the end of what we were going to do? I mean, we wanted to be advocates for life, speaking our minds on national issues, commenting on education, health, talking about rural development, talking about finance, the banking sector. Is that the end? What has come? So the new environment was not friendly at all. You could hear even the police officers who led us to the Adenta police station. There was one who was fighting us and insulting us. I couldn't fathom that. I kept my calm. When I got to Adenta, I had the opportunity to interact with the officer in charge. And I told him of the conduct of the policeman. He quickly changed him. That one to ease me down, that at least there were people in the system who will listen to us and they would not get us in some tight corner to punish us. So when we got in, I'm saying that if you saw the man who received that very tall man, 6'3", tall guy, and he will not be pleasant with us. Hurry up, do this, change yourself, come and take your thumbprint. It was not friendly at all. Then we got to the records office. Then a semblance of somebody who spoke the same language as me, the 3IC there, Mr. Boy, I always salute him for his advice and guidance. He says that God has a plan and purpose for everybody. And at every time, it is God that takes the decision as to what to do with you who are here on earth. So we should take our incarceration as something that God has brought to us to teach us hard lessons that we would not take time to learn. And that is what made me to come down. You know, I was wearing bushy hair at the time, so quickly when I got in, it got somebody to barber me. First, I didn't want to cut my hair, but I noticed that everybody had short hair inside. Then we had to conform.
And since then, you seem to have conformed.
Yes, I've seen that. Yes.
Let's talk about these lessons, these reforms. How is Mr. Nelson a different man today from the man who walked into the studio and dropped the bombs that led to the incarceration of all three of you? First of all, let's talk about, you know, that role you were playing in the media space. There were many people who suggested that, well, those, your supporters, who suggested that it was some sort of stifling of free speech. Do you feel that way?
Now, no. But at the time, yes.
Why don't you feel that way now?
Sometimes punishment is good. Sometimes punishment is good. Sometimes for what you do and you don't know that you have gone overboard, you need to be, somebody needs to, you know, to prick you, to prompt you, to bring you back to what you have been doing, and that you could get it better or organize yourself better if you change your actions or you change your way of doing things. People are not comfortable when I speak and I shout. The passion drives me to shout. I don't anger myself from home before I get into a station. But the issues being discussed is what irks me to come out and shout. That thing is gradually going away because I don't see the person, but I see the issues. So I don't get antagonistic. And sometimes I will hear bad things. But because of the prison experience, I just turn off and I say, this is one of the pitfalls. If you get in there, you drop. And the people who, have held you out in the first time will know that this is a habit and you don't want to change. Recently, I was on a show and I almost lost it. There's somebody who has been disturbing the status quo of the party that I joined. I decided to attack the person. And it didn't go down well. Again, the tone. I had to apologize in the show. That, yes, I've listened to myself. I didn't say it right towards the person. And to be fair to him, I retracted and I went on with my conversation. So, the training, it was short though, but the lessons, that's the Institute of Higher Learning. If you go to prison, yes, it's an Institute of Higher Learning. That is when you learn to manage what you don't have. For the future, because you'll be in prison and you've not even seen 2 cities for maybe 10 years. The kind of food you eat, you have to manage yourself. That maybe you add certain things to boil it up the more, or you find a way to eat within your pocket. You don't just eat. When you learn to spend your money wisely, because you know there's alternative use for whatever resource.
Do you think the other two learned the same lessons that you learned?
Like I said, we had individual experiences going to prison, and they'll share theirs better if they have the opportunity to speak out. But this is mine, and that is what I'm saying. If you look at the process where we came through the petition and other things, it was not a day's event. You have lawyer Nana Tudazi coming back and forth and telling us that this thing needed to be done in law, so that years on, nobody will come and pick us and put us into prison. Today, I'm happy that we came along with what he told us, and we agreed. They had to prompt the Council of State for 21 days. It had to mature before they responded to the President's petition.
Our time is up, so the quick final, yes, 1 hour is a very short time. The quick and final thing I want from you is, do you think that the President granting you the remission contributed to the NDC's loss in the election?
No, not at all. The party had been in power for 8 years. I've been an 8-year cycle running with Professor Mills and John Dramani Mahama. It's just that John Dramani Mahama had the opportunity to take a continuous second term, and it was in that bid that would have given the NDC a third continuous term, which has not happened in our fourth Republican democracy before. So it was not about our case. The problems of government, the problems the people were fed up with so many things that we're doing, and more so, the president had been there at the top without coming to the primary people who had made him president because of the circumstances that led to the listing.
We're going to have to wrap it up.
You have to wrap up. But I wanted to raise an issue.
I wish you could.
Yes, but with the contempt law, once America, Britain, India, those who have used the contempt all this while, today are putting it aside because they don't want to stifle the population from speaking their mind, of coming out with what they had to do. When your phone rings in a lower court and the judge pulls you in front, you are contempt of the court. When you are speaking when judgment is being passed or court is being heard, you are contempt of court. And when you are brought to the front and you are sentenced, you serve your full days or your full term, there's no statutory remission. And people feel that because of these things, they are afraid to go to the courts to listen to judges and then to listen to our judicial processes. For me, I believe that we must look at the law of holding or extracting the contempt law from our statute book so that we'll be without contempt. And then for the petitioners, it has been a good judicial exercise, a good judicial education. I have no personal qualms against Alfred Yeboah Asante-Beditu, who is the president's executive secretary, and my own party member, Elipin Agbamava. Yes, it's just that on those toes that we stepped, on those that we hurt, and for instance, the NDC party, who even feel slighted that by that decision that we lost, we are sorry for what we did and will not repeat that behavior again.
Alistair Nelson, thank you very much for joining us.
I'm sure you bring me again for other issues.
No doubt. I'm sure anything that's relevant to you, we'd love to hear from you on it. Thank you so much for joining us on another edition. We're back next week with even more on PM Express. My name is Kujo Yangson. Good night.